Hi guys, so today is the last day of 2024 and I wanted to take the chance quickly to take a look back at my favorite reads of the year. So I have selected my favorite books of the year and I have ordered them from worst to best, although I really do love all of these books. So let's just get into it with the first book. So firstly we have 800 Grapes here by Laura Dave. And I have picked this book out somewhere at an airport, waiting for a flight. And I think I've selected it because it had this little badge here that said, by the bestseller author of The Last Thing He Told Me, which is a crime novel from Laura Day from last year, I believe. And I did kind of feel that story was a bit flat at the end, The Last Thing He Told Me. But I was still quite enjoying the book. I was enjoying her writing style, so I thought I'd give this one a chance, especially after reading the plot. So 800 Grapes is really a story about a woman finding herself and what she really wants in her life, I believe. So it starts out with this accomplished LA lawyer that is finding out about her soon-to-be husband, a dark secret that she finds out about her boyfriend, and that makes her basically run away in the middle of her wedding dress try on, and she is just running back to her parents' vineyard up in northern California, I think close to Napa Valley, Sonoma Valley or Sonoma County it's called. And she is then, hanging out at her parents' vineyard and trying to, figure out what she wants to do in her life, if she can accept this dark little secret that she finds out about her her husband to be. Or if she wants to move on in any other way. And coming back to her home village, she kind of realizes that, time doesn't stop there either when she was gone. Her two brothers are in quite a bit of personal troubles. Then the marriage of her parents is at the crossroads. There's discussions of selling the vineyard, the family vineyard. She, what is her name again? Georgia, exactly. That Georgia more and more discovers over this day that she very much loves that kind of way of life that the vineyard provided to her, and the way that she was brought up in that vineyard and in the community and the family. And she is finding it hard to take, to take part from that vineyard, and she's just, I think, a little bit overwhelmed how many changes are currently happening in her life, and she is just kind of dealing with that. So there's a lot of self-reflection, a lot of nostalgia in the book, a lot of like nice stories about winemaking actually. So I never knew that it takes 800 grapes for a whole bottle of wine. So that seems quite a big number. So this I should be more appreciative whenever I open up a bottle of wine, I guess. There's a lot of work in there. But the book is just beautifully told, and what I really love about this book as well, apart from its writing style, it's very fast-paced. I enjoyed it very much, and what I love as well is there's so many chapters in here, so it's almost like every 4 or 5 pages there's a new chapter, and I found that I really enjoy that kind of being fed a story in small parts, in small pieces. It feels like after every chapter you accomplished something small, so I do enjoy reading a book like that. It's also one thing that I realized during this year as well is I should go more for shorter books. I seem to enjoy them a lot more than like books that were double the size, because I feel like these are edited down to the essential parts. And that's just fine by me. That's enough. So I really did enjoy 800 Grapes by Laura Dave. A beautiful little book to reflect a little bit on your own life and, things that you may lose while picking another path in life. So I think there's a beautiful little anecdote in here that Georgia's mom tells her. It's like, be careful on what you give up. Wherever you come from, life doesn't stand still, and these people and that life and that village is also moving on. So next up we have The Wager by, let me get this right, by David Gran. And The Wager is a true story about a ship mutiny that happened on a British ship of war in the mid 1740s, I believe. So the Wager was dispatched at the time basically to kind of try and capture a Spanish ship that was transporting a huge treasure, basically. And it was, it was staffed with all these people that were not really professionals or in the prime of their lifetime anymore, except for maybe the top level, and tells this story about this fast-paced chase of that Spanish vessel and all the difficulties that they at that time encountered on the high sea, which was a very dangerous job at the time. And what very much drew me to this book is that I very much enjoy these exploration stories that are real, like the endurance that is telling the story of Shackleton, Amundsen and his story. So basically all of these kind of explorer stories I was very much into always. And now when The Wager came out, I saw the cover, I read that it's based on true historic events, and I knew that was a book for me. And what I really like about it is that the author from the beginning on says, well, there's at least 4 or 5 different viewpoints of that story, because there were a lot of criminal trials on what exactly happened on the sea during the mutiny, who is to blame, all that kind of aftermath. A lot of people that were on the ship either wrote a notebook or they published their own book afterwards. And so the author is very straightforward in the beginning, saying that, that based on his research and what he kind of gathered from all these legal cases, that is more or less the most acceptable story. But whenever there were differentiating stories, he would tell you both and let you yourself decide what was true. Probably, usually it's somewhere in the middle, in between. But I really love the story. It gave me a look into that world, on how it was. Like, for example, I didn't know that they had to get, for example, to go on such a missions. It was not just one ship, it was not just one boat. It was the Wager and I think 3 other leading ships, large ships of wars, and then it was an additional accompanying vessels, and they got separated along the way. New people became captains as captains passed away, and internal fights, and they had so many people and so many different people on these ships, and a lot of them were recruited either, because they didn't have any other choice for finding work, or they were already old and partly disabled, or they had to get them from the prisons to work on these ships. So it was a crew of very different people that worked on these ships, and that caused a lot of friction, obviously. And that's what is described in this tale of The Wager, a tale of shipwreck, mutiny, and murder. And it's absolutely amazing. Also, I switch between the physical book and Audible, like back and forth in between chapters. And I can also highly recommend the Audible version. It's amazing. Next up, we have The Gentleman from Peru by Andre Ackermann. And this book, I have a separate full review video on it. So if you are interested into the details of what I thought about this book, you can check it out here. Basically, it's this beautiful little summer story, feel-good story that takes place at the Amalfi Coast, at the Italian Amalfi Coast. It starts with a couple of college friends sitting at the hotel at breakfast, I believe, or at dinner, and then they always kind of notice this man sitting by himself, eating by himself, but always staying there. And then they suddenly got to talking, and they are surprised by how much this gentleman knows about them, and then they kind of weirds them out. But then he forms this kind of connection with one of the ladies from that group, and it starts to build into a relationship that they are talking to each other about life and everything that is going on, and she starts to realize that some of these locations that the gentleman is showing her, some of the stories that he is showing her, they seem very familiar to her, and there is some like mystic to it, there's secrets to it, there is also almost a little bit of magic to it, and it's a wonderful, beautiful and romantic story that you can read in an afternoon at the pool, basically. So beautiful tale by André Ackermann, the Gentleman of Peru, and I will definitely be reading more of his books next year. Next up, we have Like the Flowing River by Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho basically is the writer of the best-selling novel The Alchemist, which is one of my absolute favorite books. And I thought, this year I should get into some more of his books, and one of the books I selected was Like the Flowing River. And the reason for that was mainly because this is not a novel, but it's more of a collection of anecdotes and things that he finds interesting, that happen to him, or that he experiences, or that he sees, or just interesting thoughts that come to him that he writes down. Sometimes it's just a little anecdote, sometimes it's something that he turns into a little short story. And it's very beautiful, and you don't have to read the book from page 1 to the end. You can just go into your favorite little stories and read through those, or you read one story per day, or whenever you feel like it. So it's not something that connects to it. It's more to get to know Paulo Coelho, his thoughts, his life, and what he experienced. And I really very much enjoy that, and it gives insight of the thoughts of him as an author and him as a human being. And I very much enjoyed most of these stories, absolutely. Next up, we have The Lantern of Lost Memories by Sanaka Hiragi. And also on The Lantern of Lost Memories, I have a separate review, a full review up on the channel. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. Basically, I just kind of gotten into these, I don't even know what they call them, these Japanese coffee book stories that started being popular a few years ago. I started with the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, and then I saw this book in the shop, and I was like, oh, this looks like something similar. And then I read the plot, and it sounds wonderful. So doesn't this sound intriguing? Like on the back of the book, there's only 3 lines on it, but it was enough for me to buy the book. So it only says 1 photograph, 1 treasured memory, 1 chance to go back. Like, doesn't that sound amazing? It sounds so nostalgic. It sounds about, you thinking back about all the other decisions, or all the wonderful, or also impressing but maybe sad memories that you had in your life. And that's mostly what this book is about. So this book is about a gentleman that works in a very special photography studio. So what happens is basically whenever somebody passes away, they turn up in his photo studio, and he is kind of tasked with making that person understand that they are dead, they are dying, and they are on the way to moving on in their path. So on the way to moving on in the afterlife, basically he helps them remembering and reliving one of their best memories that they have. And he basically provides them with a picture of each day of their life. He tells them to pick out their most favorite pictures. At the end of the day, he will make a lantern for them with all these pictures that is basically flashing their life before their eyes, basically like this. But at the same time, they also get a chance to relive one of their favorite photos. He takes them back to that time, and they can experience that life again. And the nice thing here is this is also made up of short stories. So there's a gangster mob that dies, that is being shot, that wants to relive one of his favorite memories. There's a wonderful young school teacher, or not school teacher, like nursery teacher in here, that helped rebuild the nursery from the ground up after the war, basically after Second World War, I believe. So this is a wonderful little tale. It's very cozy. It makes you think about your life and also about death. Next up, we have a book by the King, and I mean Stephen King. So we have Holly by Stephen King, and it's the second Stephen King that I read this year, I believe, I read Fairy Tale. I didn't like that at all. I liked the first part of the book, like most people, but not the second part. But for Holly, I think I just bought it because of the cover, because it looks so intriguing to me, and I was kind of into that horror phase at the time. I don't know, the plot just really sounded very interesting. I was a little bit worried that I may not be able to understand the book, because apparently Holly is a character that also shows up in some of his other books. So I should get into these books, but you don't need to read them to understand the plot of Holly. So it's basically, the book is about Holly Gibney, who is a private investigator, who is uncovering a case of, you know, people disappearing and dying, and it's very suspenseful, and it's, yeah, Holly is a very intriguing character, I think, throughout the whole period of the book. It's a very thick book, but I did enjoy reading every single page of it, and I think it's the first and only Stephen King I liked so far. I'm right now into a new Stephen King, which I'm not quite sure yet if I like it, but watch out for a video on that on the channel. So my second favorite book here is something that is unfortunately only available in Chinese, but I really did want to include it in this list. It's by Hu and Yan, and it's translated, it's called I'm in Beijing delivering parcels. So this is the real life story of the author, working in courier companies, logistics companies, overnight shifts in and also day shifts in different cities in China. I think before, during, and after COVID is the book takes place. So it's in chronological order. It details his jobs and his part-time jobs that he had during this period of time. And then a large focus of the book is his time that he spent in Beijing, in China, delivering for a parcel delivery company, and kind of the difficulties that come with that. Number one, struggling to make money, while at the same time he wants to be a writer and write books. And just how difficult life is for these delivery drivers. So he was basically driving one of these electric tricycles with box with a huge box in the back where he can put the parcels, and he's tasked with delivering them. And already here in Europe, and I'm sure in the US as well, this is one of the hardest jobs I believe you can do at the moment. There's just a never-ending mountain of parcels to be delivered, and you're never done. You never deliver every parcel by the end of the day, and it's already hard here. And then when you read about how the system works for them over there in China, how little money they earn per parcel, and how they are being penalized by if something breaks down, or if they are taking back a delivery and then it turns out it's being damaged, everything is being deducted directly from their own paycheck and not from the company. And it's just a very interesting insight in that kind of number one, in that kind of industry, that kind of job, and also in how it is different across the world. And I would highly recommend reading that if a translation ever is coming out. It is very popular in China. It sold very high number of copies, so there's a potential that it will be translated. So my number one book of the year, I guess is not a surprise, is Not Till We Are Lost by Dennis E. Taylor, which is the 5th installment in the Bobbyverse series. I have a separate video on the Bobbyverse series, as well as on this specific book, Not Till We Are Lost, on the channel, if you're interested in that. But if you already seen them, I absolutely love Dennis E. Taylor's writing style. I love how he was able to build a book series based on only one person, basically. So the Bobbyverse, this is the tale of Bob Johansson, who tragically dies in a car accident just after having signed an agreement that would allow him to, once the technology is available, to having his brain scanned and be transformed basically into an artificial intelligence. They call it replicant, and it's much more complex in the book, but for the sake of being short here, let's call it artificial AI. And he is then, you know, the waking up hundreds years later, and he's being trained to be the controlling intelligence of a space probe to go exploring the universe, basically. And along the way, of course, a lot of things happens, a lot of time passes. We are in the 5th book right now. He is then self-replicating. He is making more copies of himself. They all have a little bit of a personality drift. So that's something that I find amazing in Dennis E. Taylor's writing, is how he is able to take that one personality, that one person, and just introduce for 10, 20, 30, 40 different characters, just very minor variations to the character and their personality and behavior, but for them still feeling as their very own character. So that's something I absolutely love about his writing style. What I also love is how deep he goes into specifics with, you know, technology and science behind these books. For, you know, for this book, I was a little bit worried because the 4th book was not that much to my taste. 1, 2, 3 were amazing. The 4th was, I mean, it was great. I still loved it, but it was not up to the standards, or it felt very different than books 1, 2, 3. Now with the 5th book, I feel that number 1, basically we are coming back to how he wrote the first few books, while at the same time setting up for all these possibilities and open ends for future books. And I believe he's planning to have the series have at least 8 or 10 books. So I'm very much looking forward to the next few books, but I absolutely love Not Till You Are Lost. I highly recommend you to listen to the audiobook by Ray Porter, which is an absolute amazing performance by Ray Porter. So I hope more people are getting into the Bobbyverse here. But yeah, that's about it. Those are my favorite reads, my favorite books of 2024. Please let me know your thoughts on any of these books, and also please let me know in the comments below what are your favorite books of this year, and I'll see you in the next year. Bye bye.